a stunning blow to one of Wall Street's biggest power players, Goldman Sachs. The SEC is charging Goldman with fraud.
All these Wall Street deals, transactions are complicated, but this one, actually, you can explain. You can use the analogy. You can just kind of walk through it.
Difficult to get an analogy that people who aren't in this business understand.
You're right that it's hard to make an analogy.
One analogy to understand this, guys?
The analogy is like...
This is like selling somebody a house with a defective furnace that you know is going to explode, then buying insurance, fire insurance on the house.
Liz, build me a house to sell, and I'm going to give you the materials so that it burns down when you're done. Liz turns to you, David, and says, David, buy this house, but doesn't tell you that I have given her the materials to burn down once you've completed the deal. And even worse, I bought insurance that the house would burn down.
Throwing a little bit of gasoline on the fire.
The finish to your analogy.
That's it in a nutshell.
Just to simplify for the viewers, it's sort of like the Mets playing the Yankees, but the manager of the Mets gets to pick the Yankee lineup.
Absolutely.
Disastrous for sure, but natural, they were not.
Was this purely a perfect storm, or was it a man-made perfect storm in which the clouds receded?
Look, how would you look at the risk of a hurricane?
Having sat on the board of the California Earthquake Authority, acts of God will exempt.
This is no Icelandic volcano.
These were acts of men and women.
You and your Wall Street buddies, wild gambling sprees which may well be littered with fraud.
Maybe this is a mixed metaphor, but...
Maybe this is like the murder on the Orient Express. Everyone did it.
Weren't these the words that Martin Sheen exchanged with his son at the end of the movie Wall Street?
And now Wall Street 2's coming out. He's coming out of prison.
Yeah, I had one guy tell me it's like betting on the Indy 500.
Goldman, as a bank, was really just staging a car race so that some people could bet on whether the car would crash or not.
We're going to bet that this car is going to crash. They're not sure whether the car is going to crash. They know it's a crappy car.
They're all crap. I think they're all crap. Can you make me a synthetic basket? Hey, I've made Dylan this basket of crap he requested.
But guess what? Sometimes crappy cars make it through the Indy 500.
Was that car, were the brakes tampered with ahead of time?
I'm just going to be blunt with you. It sounds to me a little bit like selling a car with faulty brakes and then buying an insurance policy on the buyer of those cars.
Roger's right, using this analogy of the cars, if you will, with the brakes that are faulty.
So imagine, I want you to imagine if I was a car manufacturer. I'm the biggest car company in the country, manufacturing cars where the brakes don't work. So I've got a shiny red Ferrari right here. I'm going to take the engine part out here. I then bet that the car will crash. It does.
You built a shiny Ferrari actually without brakes.
So that it explodes, blow up.
You didn't even build the brakes.
Whether I put the brakes in or cut the line, either way it's going to fail.
Why are we staging car races so that people can bet on whether they'll crash when it does, nothing for society?
Let's treat Goldman Sachs as if it were an antique car dealer.
Cars that explode.
Think about that. It's easy to understand a used car. But we're not talking cars here. We're talking mortgage-backed securities. My used car analogy, do you think it explained?
Yeah, I think the car analogy is great. I like to call it, it's when the house always wins.
When the cards are stacked, the house always wins.
The house is winning because they had stacked the deck.
Loading the dice. Running a casino where the house always won.
The model evolved in the direction of a casino.
A gambling casino.
It's fine to have gambling in society. That's why we have Las Vegas. You can go there and gamble. You can lose all your money for all we care. But gambling with these large amounts of money, this is not acceptable.
Is this a casino? Of course this was a casino.
Casino mentality.
This is pure casino idiocy.
Tiny Town, USA. Donut shop. Swimming pool. Mean Old Man. Swimming pool chemicals. Chlorine. Flour. Sugar. Non-dairy creamer. Mean Old Man. Screw up. Mean Old Man. You know that non-dairy creamer? That's actually chlorine. Kill people. Oh, man. I'll give you $25. Make it 30. The donut shop in this little scenario, Goldman Sachs. We all live in Tiny Town now. Don't use the non-dairy creamer.
Maybe I'll just have, just a nice mineral water.
Eugene Robinson, absolutely nothing to do with the whole Tiny Town thing.
I'm going to a restaurant to have dinner.
If I'm buying a meal from you, I want to know that the meal is actually nourishing, that you're not selling me a poison meal betting that I'm going to die.
I'm friendly with the owner, but he doesn't tell me that the chef has a bottle of arsenic and $1 million life insurance policy on my life.
So there's no difference between them and the Gambino crime family, is there?
The best analogy to what's happened here in the last 2 years is the Tylenol scare back in 1984. A few bottles of Tylenol were tainted with cyanide. They were real toxic assets, and they had no market.
Tylenol just might be the headache Lloyd Blankfein didn't want to have.
2 analogy points on that one.
And we haven't seen a single criminal investigation.
There are no cops around.
Why aren't there not cops around?
Well,
it's
because
interesting you use that language.
There's all these little legal changes that were made in D.C. that have castrated attorney generals like yourself.
I would
respectfully stay away from the word castrated.
I've understood.
I'm glad that the SEC finally grew some testicles and decided to take on Goldman Sachs.
Goldman, I thought, at least could take comfort or defense in the esoterica of this, how hard it is to go home and explain to your mother. You know, I have to use all these metaphors like Wall Street churning out tainted hamburger meat and everything else, and by the end of the conversation, the person's more confused than the beginning of the conversation.